This thing has a wealth of conversational topics.
Absolutely. I really love the fact that I was able to discover this woman and learn this history because it's like, oh, more people should know about her.
Got you in a close-up, Professor. You look just like Pearl McCormick in Scarred Shade, Philadelphia Color Plays, 1927.
Welcome to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine, although I think we'd have to have a meeting of why your name came first.
I'd like to do reverse alphabetical.
This week we have discovered the lost gem was known as Losing Ground. What did you think about this film?
I need to separate this between the formal and like the content of it.
We're getting philosophical already. Let's do it.
The actual film making, like the camera shots, the blocking, the mise en scène, if we want to get like super fancy with our terminology, is great. I think Kathleen Collins is a huge, huge talent. It is such a loss to the film community that she died so young, because I would love to have seen what she would have grown into as a filmmaker and push boundaries and what she would have actually created. So the actual physical, what I'm looking at is great. The content, like the actual storyline, plotline, and kind of how it's acted is where I kind of felt disenchanted with this movie. I never was able to fully engage with it, mostly because I thought that the two lead actors were a bit too, I don't know, low-key. They just didn't grab me, I guess, with their performances. What's being talked about here is amazing. We have like a very detailed conversation about some of the thoughts and concepts that are being brought up to this. There's actually this 2-hour video that's been posted onto Vimeo, I know it's not YouTube, of her giving a lecture on some of the themes within this movie that I think is brilliant and great. And I think how I would want to watch and consume this information rather than this film.
But the point is, we are the outsider.
Just for context, this movie was built and shown in 1982 on the film circuit. It was not picked up for distribution. And only after she unfortunately passed away 6 years after that, and her daughter inherited the estate. And this movie actually was published in 2015. So there's a huge gap in which this movie technically didn't exist. It's amazing. Kathleen Collins is an incredible intellectual, well-read. She's a professor, she's a screenwriter, she's a director. There's so much underneath this movie that how it is packaged as a movie, you know, it's an indie film. It's not a sit-down popcorn feature. But when we understand that she's trying to build visual metaphors for philosophical concepts, both with narratives of religion, existential philosophy, race experience in the United States, her experience as a female intellectual, I mean, it's all loaded into this film. When we start interpreting this film in that light, this thing has a wealth of conversational topics.
Absolutely. This is part of why I love this podcast so much, is that oftentimes, because we have to fill a slot every week, there's sometimes these movies that like bubble up. I've never heard of this movie before. I don't really know the backstory. I don't know this person, but this forced me to watch it now. And I really love the fact that I was able to discover this woman and learn this history, because it's like, oh, more people should know about her and more people should be engaging with her filmography and how she relates to the canon of film. The returning theme is that it's so unfortunate that even though she would have been much older than them, coming into the industry at the same time as like your Spike Lees, your Hughes brothers, or John Singletons, it would have been so fascinating to see her view of like the early 90s and how she could have really been, I think, even more provocative.
It's always fun to project and presume influence of people who are just not there. Of course, we don't know. She may have been pushed to the wayside anyways, because not only is she intellectual and black, she's also a woman. So, it's hard to tell. I mean, the 80s were a weird time. In our most optimistic light, I mean, she definitely had it. She would have been a great voice, even if it wasn't so public. I mean, she was an activist. She was part of the civil rights movement. She's part of this huge wellspring and this cultural shift in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which we spoke about last season a little bit. If you get a chance to see this on the Criterion channel or otherwise, and you have an interest in pulling apart films in this way, you have to watch this movie.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't, and you don't want to have a talk at a coffee shop or on a podcast with someone who's equally as nerdy as you won't enjoy it.
Definitely recommend. I would definitely go and check this movie out, just to have those conversations and to have like that provocativeness like pushed at you. We're in 1982, Dave.
For our full ramblings, find us on the audio podcast world, wherever that is. I thought it'd be fun as we were doing a little bit of contextual research to just figure out what life is like in 1982. I kind of regret this. We've discussed this
I'm
from the
sipping
beginning.
my Diet Coke.
Real Coca-Cola.
Enjoying Cindy Crawford. Would she have been
82 is a bit early.
Enjoying Farrah Fawcett.
We're going to do a little catch-up. I just thought it'd be neat to talk about this week in 1982.
Was this also posted by Buck McDirt or no?
It'd be interesting if Buck McDirt is Wikipedia.
Wow. Blew my mind, man.
All right, let's take a look. Number one, I think it's safe to just start off with the fact that an actor, a conservative, someone who hates drugs, was the president of the United States.
What?
Commodore 64 is released January 7th. Fascinating.
The video game industry is kind of being born in North America.
Imagine that.
I really can't wait when we get to E.T. because the E.T. game tanks the video game market in the U.S.
I was actually thinking about Tron, but we'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there.
It says AT&T is broken up. Is that an antitrust thing? We should look that up.
AT&T now owns Warner Brothers, so how much was it actually broken up?
The UK has a record cold snap, January 10th.
Wow.
January 13th. Air Florida Flight 90 crashes into the 14th Street Bridge. 78 deaths.
Yikes.
I didn't know about that. On the same day, the Washington Metro train derails in the north, killing 3 people.
What kind of news are you talking about?
Kyle, this is
like fun stuff.
This is
like
my
the Commodore
theory.
64. Go back to that.
That the world was just as shitty in 82. We just have Twitter now.
Makes you think, just like this movie.
Where we'll end today's segment, and they'll get shorter from now on. Unemployment in the UK increases, from 129,918, Kyle, to 3,070,621.
What was Thatcher doing? She's breaking up unions. That's what she was doing.
I was talking to this woman who helps run Exposure Photography Festival, and she talked about the growth of the punk movement and photo zines in this era because of this problem of unemployment in the UK. UK is going through some culture war, and we get some great music out of there. I know you don't like synth, punk, or free thinking, Kyle.
Don't misrepresent me in the group
it's
text.
happening.
I am not anti-synth. Our other compatriot is anti-synth.
Pro-synth,
Put more
synth for
in your
life.
music, honestly.
That was a long version. We'll get a little shorter, but getting cultural. 1982, start off mostly shitty, frankly, according to Wikipedia. But Commodore 64, 8 bits, baby. Yeah,
8 bits, baby.
8 bits. All right, see you next week.
Shaving a haircut, 8 bits.
Wow.
You can't understand why I do the work I do unless you understand this, because this is the basis out of which all the work comes. If you are the outsider, if you are the sinner, you are by definition extraordinary, meaning you are either super good or you are super evil. You are super sexual or you are super ascetic. You cannot arrive at normality because that is the one thing that has been denied you.